SportsBeat is brought to you by Ken Garth. We hear you.
It is June 14th and SportsBeat is live on your TV, your computer, your mobile device, however you choose. Thanks for joining us, Sam Farnsworth and Spencer Linton. We're guiding you through the next 45 minutes and plenty to talk about. There's drama in the NBA. Will some players really sit out? And will arenas really be empty next season?
Major League Baseball just hoping for any type of season in 2020. We're quickly approaching dumpster fire territory as owners and players remain at an impasse over COVID-19 affected compensation. But let's not start on that downer, Sam. Rather, some superb scheduling news for BYU and Utah State basketball, and a Utah native shining on the links in, get this, an actual live sporting event, Sam.
Yes, it's happening. The Pga Tour has returned. You know, when you shoot for 4 straight rounds under par, I'd say that's a pretty darn good weekend, right? That's what Tony Finau did at the Charles Schwab Challenge as the Pga Tour returned to tournament play for the first time since the coronavirus shutdown. Tony came into the final round at 6 under par, but 7 shots behind the leader. The 4th round was his second best round of this tournament, and his tee shot on the 16th, well, this is our play of the day. Sticks it right on the green, setting up a long birdie try here, and you know he's dialed in. He's going to drop this right in the center of the cup, finished at 8 under for the tournament, tied for 23rd. How about the rest of the field? Well, 6 golfers finished within a stroke of the lead, but it came down to 2 guys, Daniel Berger and Colin Morikawa. They went to a playoff hole tied at 15 under. Morikawa buried deep in the rough, but he gets up and out, and look at that nice roll to about 3 feet away from the cup.
That'll play.
Sure will. Does that look familiar? Yeah, now it's Berger's ball that's just off the green in the deep rough, but he's got a pretty nice recovery too. The chip to within about a foot of the cup, so he's sitting pretty. Steps up for an easy par try here, and well, he just taps it in. So he's got the lead. The pressure is on Morikawa. He needs to sink this putt to force a second playoff hole. Morikawa, I think he maybe thought about this one a little too long, because look at that. He lips it out, and he's just sick about it. Daniel Berger takes home $1.3 million of 500 points in the FedEx Cup standings with that win.
That 3-footer cost him about $500,000. Think about that. Hey, today, NASCAR also live. Fast cars, excellent drivers, all highly insured, taking their collective talents to South Beach and rainy Miami on Sunday for the Dixie Vodka 400 at Homestead. Yep, that's what it's called. As I mentioned just a few seconds ago, it rained a lot, causing several delays. Rain is the pits, pun absolutely intended. But in spite of several stoppages, they managed to fit in all 267 laps of the 400-mile race. Denny Hamlin led a dominating 138 of those laps, taking the lead for good with 29 laps to go, waving goodbye to Chase Elliott. How do those taillights look? 39-year-old Denny Hamlin wins his 40th Cup Series race of his very successful career. He's the first racer to take home the checkered flag in 3 different events this season.
Well, the NBA says they're ready to go July 31st, the date set to resume play with 22 teams in Orlando. But some key members of the Players Union are saying not so fast. After a players' call on Friday night with about 100 NBA players, including Mike Conley and Donovan Mitchell, concerns were expressed about going back after such a long break. Kyrie Irving led that call, and initial reports were stated that Donovan Mitchell was among those that spoke out about possibly sitting out the season due to social issues and COVID-19 concerns. Donovan later retweeted that headline, that post, with 2 words, quote, "Stop it." Donovan's main concern was that jumping right back into play after such a long break would be too high of an injury risk. Well, he does want to play, but he and several other young players, they want a backup plan to this as well. Bam Adebayo, Kyle Kuzma, De'Aaron Fox are among those players that are eligible for rookie extensions with Mitchell in the offseason and are on the cusp of big max contract extensions as well. They're urging the Players Association, the executive director, to talk with the league about possible insurance allowances for players. The union and the NBA are currently negotiating revised terms to the current CBA. Now, we do have a clear timeline of what to expect when the NBA returns next month. July 30th through August 14th would be the seeding games, then the play-in tournament over the next 2 days, the playoffs beginning August 17th. Conference semis start August 31st, the conference finals on September 15th, and the NBA finals will run from September 30th through October 13th. With all of the talk about some of those players sitting the rest of the season, one big topic that kind of gets lost in in the information from that call on Friday night. No fans in 2021. Yeah, the players say they believe fans will not be allowed to attend any games for all of next season. That would be a big blow for teams with strong home court advantages, just like the Utah Jazz. So, Spencer, do you believe the NBA will have a season with no fans next year? It's kind of hard to fathom that.
Yeah, no, I know, and I know there are those of you out there that are thinking, well, what about football? Because aren't they going to deal with at least some crowds? But there's a big difference between a contained venue and an outdoor venue, and that's why I'm not that surprised to hear the NBA say, we're going to play it extra cautious. Yeah. This is circulated air. We probably won't allow fans in 2021. But you can always go the Korean baseball organization way and just pull in SpongeBob dolls and Disney stuffed figurines. Animals. Yeah, just throw them in the stands.
No doubt. And with the NBA also, by the time their season restarts, we're talking about a possible spike in COVID-19 or COVID-20 or whatever it is at that point, the coronavirus spiking again. So I think they're just taking precautions now. I would imagine that even if they started the season without fans, if things clear up, that they would let them back in. But let's hope that it's not empty next year.
Yeah, can you imagine the demand for tickets if only 4,000 or 5,000 fans are allowed into a game at a time?
No kidding.
Wow.
We'll see.
All right, Sam, I'll see your NBA news.
Touchdown! 15, 10, 5, touchdown! 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 Touchdown, Utah! It's over! They said the touchdown! He got in, and the Cougars win!
Okay, yes, Sam, I'll see your NBA news and raise you a hopeful return to college football. The Division I Football Oversight Committee has passed a 6-week practice plan in pursuit of an on-time start to the 2020 college football season. This proposal now moves to the NCAA Division I Council for further approval at a meeting this upcoming Wednesday. Pending approval, the likes of BYU, Utah, and Utah State could all get back in gear, literally and figuratively speaking, as soon as July 13th. The absence of spring football for programs nationwide, coupled with a lack of facility use for most athletes over the last 3 months, has spawned this expedited and lengthier fall camp scenario. During this proposed period, teams would be allowed 20 hours of workouts per week with a max of 4 hours per day. Of course, all of this is contingent on the COVID-19 situation remaining a low to moderate threat, which is not the case for the University of Houston. The UH Athletic Department has suspended all voluntary workouts after 6 student athletes across various sports showed symptoms and then tested positive. Houston officials opted for a shutdown in what they're calling an abundance of caution. This marks the first university in the country to close down recently opened workouts.
Interesting there. Well, when Utah State's basketball season ended abruptly after winning the Mountain West tournament, it also ended their hopes of a deep run in the NCAA tournament. The Aggies clearly want to repeat that success, and they want to carry the excitement of this past season over with them to next season. And announcements like this one this week are helping a bit to keep the excitement high. Utah State and Mississippi State announcing that they will be playing each other in December in a neutral site contest in Panama City, Florida. Mississippi State is coming off a 20-win season. They finished ranked 49th in the final RPI index. This will be the 4th time in history that these two teams will meet in basketball. The previous 3 meetings came between 2011 and 2014. Utah State was they won just one of those meetings, and that was on November 23rd, 2013 in Logan. The Aggies won 87-68 to start the season 4-0. They made 11 three-pointers in that game, led by Preston Medlin, who scored 21. Jared Shaw had 17 points, and freshman forward Jalen Moore had 9 points and 8 rebounds.
It's no secret the NCAA Tournament Selection Committee values college basketball teams that take on a tough, high-risk, high-reward schedule. BYU basketball and head coach Mark Pope embraced that philosophy in his first season. And before a global pandemic, were a top 10 team in the net rankings. So it should come as no surprise the Cougars are leveling up next season's schedule, and doing so by adding a couple of Pac-12 powerhouses this upcoming season, beginning with Oregon. The Cougars will play in the Phil Knight Classic in Portland and hunt for a quality win against the Ducks. This will mark the 21st meeting all-time between the two programs and the first since BYU and Oregon met in the NCAA tournament back in 2014. Oregon won that second-round game 87-68. BYU will also face Arizona State out of the Pac-12 in a de facto road game, technically neutral site, at Talking Stick Resort Arena in Phoenix this December. The Cougars lead the overall series with the Sun Devils 24 games to 21, and this marks the first meeting between the schools in men's hoops in more than a decade. For my history buffs, the once longtime conference rivals last played on December 8th, 2009. Do we have highlights of this game? Oh, of course we do. Our archives know no bounds. Cougar greats Jackson Emery and Tyler Haws led the Cougars with 17 points apiece. Highlight of the night belonged to that man, Brandon Davies. Thank you very much. BYU with a 13-point win over the Sun Devils.
Well, the BYU baseball program started in 1955. 3 years later, Ken Hunt became the first former Cougar to make it to the majors. Since then, 25 total former Cougars have played in major league games. Will Jared Lesser be the next? The BYU pitcher signed a free agent contract with the Yankees today. He will report to spring training in Tampa as soon as MLB sets training dates for next season, assuming they're able to do that. But you know, it might be a while because Major League Baseball and the Players Union are not getting along these days. The players rejected baseball's latest offer to return to play and will not make a counterproposal, saying that further discussions would be futile. The players demand that MLB orders a return to play by tomorrow. The union would then likely file a grievance that MLB did not fulfill its obligation to play the most games possible. What a mess.
Right by Austin and throws it down over Bettier.
Well, last week it was the mailman. Tonight we count down Deron Williams' top dunks in the playoffs. Stick around. Plenty more SportsBeat coming up.
SportsBeat is brought to you by Ken Garth. We hear you.
Welcome back to SportsBeat. Now, if all goes according to plan, the NBA playoffs with the Utah Jazz will get going in August. It'll be the Jazz 29th appearance in the NBA playoffs, 29 postseasons with thousands of great Jazz memories.
Our crack research team has compiled a handful of those great playoff moments, zeroing in on the 2006 to 2010 Jazz seasons, featuring one Deron Williams. This week, we're counting down the top 5 playoff dunks from D. Will.
Boozer, outlet caught by Williams. Flies in and puts it down over Odom.
Yeah, number 5 on our list comes from the 2008 playoffs on the road against the Lakers, and D. Will flies by Lamar Odom to throw one down with the right hand. The Jazz, he led the Jazz with 25 points, 10 assists in the game, the first of multiple great dunks against the Lakers in this playoffs.
First series against Durant.
Williams throws it down and a foul.
Break run on test.
At number 4, 2010 Williams running the floor nicely and receiving reward for his effort. Dunks on the artist formerly known as Meta World Peace. Was he Ron Artest at the time? Great pass from Wesley Matthews, and Deron puts Meta, or Ron, whatever, on a poster.
Number 3 takes us back to the Lakers series in 2008. This time, Game 4 at the Delta Center. D. Will with the enthusiastic celebration. He had a big game. 29 points on 9 of 12 shooting, 14 assists, and the Jazz won that game by 8 and tied up that series 2 games each.
Nice backdoor. Williams. Oh, what a jam from Deron Williams.
Rewind to 2007 for number 2. The Jazz against the eventual champions, San Antonio Spurs. D. Will going hard at Luis Scola. All of Argentina feeling that tremor. What's better than that, Sam?
Deron Williams blows right by Austin and throws it down over Bettier.
This was better. Our number 1 dunk from Deron Williams in the playoffs in 2008 against the Rockets. Game 4 in the best of 7. Williams had 17 points, 9 assists, and that big dunk, big enough to start making a name for himself amongst the top stars in the NBA. Tracy McGrady figuring out that it's Deron, not Deron.
Outstanding stuff. Hey, it's not every day one of the greatest basketball players in the history of the sport chats it up on the airwaves of KSL Sports. Former Jazzman Thurl Bailey, every Tuesday, hosts the Thurl Talk podcast. His guest just a few days ago, Dr. J, Julius Erving. On topic, Jazz All-Star big man Rudy Gobert and the transformation of the NBA style of play, moving away from dominant big men.
1964, Oscar Robertson was the most valuable player in the league.
Right.
And he won that award. And in 1981, I won the award. And it was the first time that the award had gone to a non-center since Oscar.
Right.
So there was a stretch there, 17 years or whatever that. No, 64 to 81. How much is that? It's 81. It's 17 years. The centers had dominated. Centers were the key. Centers were the, you couldn't win a championship without having a great center.
Right.
So things changed after 81, and then in the 80s you had, Bird, and you had Magic, and you had, there were a couple centers in there who won, but it was non-centers in the game. And now it's, you just go back. These guards, they're running the show.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're like the dominant forces. The Steph Currys and LeBron. He plays all the positions, but he's not a center. And so it's really hard. The center has become a dinosaur. And unless they can move outside and they can play like Jokic and play like Embiid or whatever, then they're going to be neutralized somehow in a 7-game series if they can only play the low post. Because there's strategies for a guy who is only a low post player. I don't particularly like seeing centers shooting threes because they're probably going to shoot 30%. From out there, I'd rather see him take a 50 or 60% shot or whatever. But it's a part of the game, and spreading the floor and keeping the heat on the other team and keeping your options open.
So how does a guy like Rudy Gobert here in Salt Lake City make it work? Is it the system?
Yeah, I think they have a very good system, and he deployed interestingly enough, and Donovan. Being as good as he is, as young as he is, just coming in and being able to take the reins the way that he has. Joe does a great job in terms of mixing. But, at the end, are they really contenders for the championship?
Right.
Can
you win a 7-game series with that?
Yeah, that's what you have to look at because teams constantly adjust. And if you give them more to adjust to, as you know, then it's harder for them. But if you're limited in terms of the adjustments that they have to make, they make those adjustments, like nothing. So I would think that Rudy's backup guy has to be able to spread the floor.
Gotcha.
Because this teams are going to play small, and they're going to have to, they're going to have to match that.
Yeah.
More from Dr. J in a bit. Well, how many people do you know that was a 4-time All-American, won an NIT and NCAA title, and won the title in the NBA? That's former Utah Ute star Arnie Farren's basketball career in a nutshell. And at age 94, he's still as sharp as ever and has a vivid memory of his experiences in some of the great moments in basketball history. Today, he recounts his time in professional basketball. He played just 3 seasons in the pros, but he was a key piece alongside a Hall of Famer in leading the Minneapolis Lakers to 2 titles.
The game of basketball has come a long way since its humble beginnings. The game is now global. The NBA is one of the richest and most powerful sports leagues in the world, featuring some of the biggest names in sport. Young players spend 1 year in college and can't wait to bolt for the millions that await them in the NBA. Well, it hasn't always been like that. When Arnie Farren was a college basketball star at the University of Utah in the 1940s, pro basketball was just getting started. He was a 4-time All-American, NCAA and NIT tournament champion. When his college career was done, he had next to no interest in pro basketball.
The average player made maybe $5,000 or $6,000 then to play in the NBA, and you could make that much money in Utah.
The NBA didn't even exist as we know it in 1948 when Arnie's college basketball career came to an end. He was drafted by the Minneapolis Lakers, of the Basketball Association of America.
My wife and I prayed about it a lot, and the thought came to me that if you want to play, you want to be on a team where you can play. So I went back and said to them, where do you see me playing on your Lakers team? And I said, you're offering money, there must be a reason. And they said, well, you're 6'4", our small forward is 6'4". You obviously can play guard, so there are two opportunities for you. So I looked at my wife and said, go home and move us. We're going to Minneapolis.
Arnie would join a team that featured one of the greatest players in NBA history, George Mikan. For Arnie, finding his place on the Lakers wasn't easy.
George Mikan was the dominant player at that time. And he lived in a hotel in downtown Minneapolis, and 4 of the players were his friends. All of a sudden, if I make the team, one of George's friends is going to get cut. I did not see the basketball ever. If I take it out of bounds, I throw it in, never see it again. If I take it out of bounds, nobody ever passed it to me.
But an injury gave Arnie the chance to prove himself. He took advantage of the opportunity.
I got to start. Scored 22 points. And then I started after that.
Arnie knew his role. Get the ball to George Mikan.
Coach said to me, I took that big long outside shot. He says, Arnie, he said, you probably make 110 out of that. Why don't you throw it into George? He can do better than 110.
He played 3 seasons with the Minneapolis Lakers and was a part of 2 NBA championship teams in 1949 and 1950.
The players were good players and they were good people. Wives met together and parties together, and playing with George was an experience in itself.
He walked away from pro basketball in 1951, but 70 years later, he looks back on his experience with pride, knowing he's one of the few that can call themselves an NBA champion.
It really was a dead-end job, and you played because you enjoyed the game, not because you made any money. And it turns out that, well, what can you tell? How many people have played here that haven't played on an NBA championship team? And we know this, that you're pretty darn lucky if you do.
What an amazing story. All right, well, more from Dr. J. He tells us with Thurl Bailey, and we get an inside look at the Jazz draft room. What a dive into the archive. That's coming up next.
The Hallowed Grounds, brought to you by Siegfried and Jensen.
Welcome in to this week's episode of The Hallowed Grounds, Ogden Golf and Country Club. We appreciate you, as we do every week. Jay Gnarly, everybody. Professional soccer player for 8 years, 5 of those in Major League Soccer, and played a very big role in bringing Nick Rimando to Real Salt Lake, which I'm sure Jay doesn't want to talk about, but we will. Jay Gnarly, you ready?
Yep.
We play off the Blues, you're the guest, and I didn't even mention Bushnell. I was thinking about Nick Rimando and I got so caught up. I apologize. Hey, if you beat me on this hole and the second hole, a Bushnell, Wingman, not this, but same company, you get the gist. You get it?
Yep.
You're up. Play some golf.
Okay.
Can I just tell you, I'm not losing this week.
There we go.
I'm on a 2-game losing streak. And it's over. It's over. Hey, do you mind telling us the story about Nick Rimando and how he got to Real Salt Lake?
I had a really good preseason the second year, so 05, first year with Salt Lake, second year, and I had a good game against DC, and I think that's where it started back up with Peter Novak. And then when Nick Rimando was out of contract at the end of the year, they were kind of, RSL went after him, and I was kind of the asterisk on the bottom, where it was like, here's Nick Rimando, Freddie Adu, and here's a ton of cash, and then it was like, hey, we want a goalie, and so I was the little scratch at the bottom. Obviously, RSL made the right decision. Nick had a fantastic career, and within a year, I'd moved over to Vancouver, which was great. I spent 4 years there too, and Peter Novak actually got fired by the time I got there. So.
Oh, that's a shame. I've played a fair bit of golf with the cameras out, and I don't know if I've ever seen anybody that far left.
Hey, we started cold. We started real cold.
Yeah, no practice swings.
It's a par 5 though.
It is a Earlier this week, groups were announced for the MLS's Back tournament.
Yep.
That name, by
brutal.
Like, they had how many months to figure out a name for a tournament? They come up with MLS's Back.
I thought when I saw the announcement, I was like, oh great, MLS is back. I didn't realize that was the name of the tournament.
Yeah, no, they need to reconsider whoever's in charge of their content.
Little trophy at the end, get into CONCACAF.
That's cool.
Yeah, and then still figure out the logistics of finishing out a season. So it's a good, okay, everybody's there contained, you can play.
I agree. Oh, and I went for the pin and nailed it. Did you watch the tournament draw?
No. Did you?
Yeah.
I
think it was rigged.
Oh, I mean, I like the groups for sure, but
there's no way.
It's interesting how they got there.
Okay, LAFC and LA Galaxy.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
And then what? Utah, Real Salt Lake, of course, gets Sporting Kansas City. Come on.
Colorado, which is a Rocky Mountain
double
rival.
whammy?
Yeah.
I do apologize. All right. There's a first for everything on this show, and it's just part of the beauty, part of the nature. I've never seen somebody attempt to play a hole 2 holes to the left, Jay. But you know what? I applaud you for trying, and it was a blast nonetheless. I really am honestly excited for Real Salt Lake to return. I'm excited to hear your voice on the radio waves, and I'm excited to see what they can do under new K coach Freddie Juarez, who I am awfully optimistic about. Yep. Nonetheless, we'll get you sorted. We won't let you leave here empty-handed. Pga Golf will sort you out, and the rest of the game. But we do appreciate you coming. Thank you. And
appreciate it.
Again, best of luck on the course.
Thank you.
Jay Nolly, everybody.
Went for it.
Welcome into this week's Pro Tip of the Week at the Ogden Golf and Country Club. Very fortunate to have Scott Erling with us, the Director of Golf up there at Weber State. Go Wildcats. And as well as the head coach of the men's team. So, Scott, we're going to work on some chipping techniques and drills, I guess, that people can go out and use.
Yeah, Tom, one thing I see with my players and most golfers in general is that a lot of times when they're chipping around the greens, they have a hard time deciding what kind of shot they're going to hit. Is it going to be high? Is it going to be low? Do they want it to run a lot? So on and so forth. So one thing I like to work on with people is okay, if I gave you the ball, had you put it in your hand and said, okay, I want you to toss this as close to the hole as you can, almost inevitably they pick the right shot, just because intuitively their brain tells them how this is going to work. So, when we're looking at a target like this one right here, I just want to try to toss this as close to the hole as I can. I kind of pick the right trajectory, my landing spot on the green, and the ball gets close to the hole. This kind of helps you make a decision and takes a lot of the uncertainty out of the shot.
Golf for years has needed a little bit of little hit of fun, and music has become popular on golf courses. So Bushnell has come out with a very innovative product called the Wingman. This is a Bluetooth speaker. Great sound quality, but we've done a couple things to make this not just a Bluetooth speaker. One is the bite technology. You can throw this on the side of a cart. It's got 11 pounds of pull pressure. You can roll the cart and this thing's gonna stay on there. Don't test that, but.
So that's a magnet?
That's a magnet. Here's what separates this from the rest of the sound boxes or Bluetooth speakers. This is a GPS. So as you're going down the fairway playing your music, you just hit the button.
Center 131 yards, front 114, back 147.
Golf for days in Heber Valley at one of 5 beautiful mountain courses. Wasatch Golf Course, Soldier Hollow Golf Course, and the Homestead Golf Club are all within 7 miles of each other. Enjoy the feeling of getting away without the long drive.